Hi everyone, this is Dr. Ernesto from Attaboy Cowboy, and today I'm recording in Manzanar Historical Monument here in Owens Valley on the way back to Los Angeles from Mammoth Lakes. However, you can stop here either way. It's about an hour outside of Mammoth, hour and a half. And I'm just catching the way back home. And this is Manzanar. This is where, unfortunately, during World War II, the U.S. government rounded up Japanese Americans and sent them out to camps like this one because they were suspicious that they might be spies or do sabotage or something to other Americans. So we're all Americans. This is out here in Owens Valley. It's about a little more than an hour from Mammoth. So you can see it either on the way to Mammoth or the way back to LA. It's in the middle of nowhere, so if you don't pay attention, you'll miss the turnout. But this place before used to be completely barren. All you used to see is just kind of like signs like this one here that marked where there used to be buildings, but they've actually went through the trouble rebuilding these structures that were originally kind of taken down. It's the government, they were ashamed. They kind of wanted just this to go away, but luckily they rebuilt all this stuff to kind of pay homage to the people that lost all their stuff and basically had to live here for years. Here's the woman's latrine, and they're just made out of wooden boards. This talks about enduring humiliation. Yeah. So this is how they used to use the restroom. It's just boards with like roofing paper outside with roofing nails. So there's no insulation. Here's where they would wash their hands. And it's always windy here, and there's a lot of dust, and this is where they would shower. So there's always be like dust coming in through the windows and through all the cracks. Even when the people are sleeping, they'd have dust and wind blowing on them. So entire families got sent here, their kids, everybody, and they just had to hang out here with barbed wire around this place, and they had watchtowers, kind of like they did in the old prisons. And the people were just stuck here. They had to grow their own food. They got some food also from the military, but they would make their own clothes. Here's a basketball court where they played basketball. And then off to the side here, when I used to come here when I was a kid, this was all just, like I said, all you saw were signs like this. Men's latrine. They used the restroom. But now they actually put some structures up, so that's cool. And off in the distance here, you'll see one of the watchtowers. See that? And this was surrounded by these watchtowers and fencing. And this particular camp, they had them up and down the West Coast. In this particular camp, they had over 10,000 Japanese Americans. This is where they spent most of the time during the war. You can see they're all kind of rudimentary. They have displays inside, exhibits. And then, I'm not sure, maybe about 10 years ago, they built this cool museum over here. It has videos and exhibits, and it goes into a little more detail about the experience these folks had here. The backdrop is amazing. This is a really pretty place, but it wouldn't be nice to be stuck here, regardless of how nice it looks. And here's a view of the camp. And all this obviously was sparked after the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor and we entered World War II. There was a lot of suspicion, and like I mentioned earlier, we were worried about spies, so we unfortunately turned against our fellow Americans and placed them in these camps. So here's one of the mess halls they used to have. And although it was a sad experience, some of the people that were here, this is where they wash their hands, recalled it in some ways as being very pleasant because the people were very united. They had to cook together, they ate together, they had to work together to have kind of a normal life. They had to, they played team sports, baseball, of course. They had dances, they had, beauty pageants. They had to educate their children. They had to grow the food, harvest the food, ferment food, do everything together. And they built these secret storages like this where people would ferment foods like alcohol, which was outlawed. And they would also play cards. It was illegal to gamble in the camp, so they would do stuff like that underground. Here you can see the cooks, young men there. And here's a typical menu. Eggs gather at the chicken ranch at 3:30 a.m. Tofu staff begins daily production. 4:30 a.m. they begin cooking. 7 a.m. breakfast served. Garbage collected to feed hogs. Morning meal served for infants and toddlers at 10. Early lunch served to hospital, police, fire department staff. 11:30. 12 p.m. lunch served. Oh, and then they had cake delivery, tofu cake, garbage collected to feed hogs, and dinner served at 5:30. And at 8 o'clock, they would host either a dance, a movie, or a meeting. So they didn't have a lot of space. They had 10,000 people. So they would hang out here and eat, and at night this would become the dance hall. And it's obviously unfortunate this happened, but when you hear politicians and folks talking about gathering up people for camps and things, some of us might think that that's not going to happen. That's absurd, but it has happened here in the United States, and it was unfortunate because these Japanese Americans were some of the most prosperous in the United States, and they had to give away all their businesses, their belongings, their homes, their cars. I read stories where they said they were given just a few days. They said, okay, you're going to be shipping out in 3 days or something. So if they had let's say a $5,000 car, they had to sell it for a few $100s. Just so they can get rid of it. Get something for it. So they had to do that with everything. Their businesses, their clothes, their personal items. They could only bring in what they could carry. So it's basically a backpack or something each. So people lost all their belongings here. And after the war, they weren't compensated till the 80s when Ronald Reagan came into office about 40 years later. He apologized on the behalf of the U.S. government, which was good, and he gave them some money. And the money wasn't very much. It was just some of the survivors of the experience, but at least it was recognized that they went through this. So this place has really grown since when I first started coming here. It just used to be slabs, so it wasn't really worth stopping. You wouldn't see anything. But now they build these buildings, and along with this beautiful backdrop here, it is a nice place to stop off on the way to Mammoth or on the way back to Los Angeles. And this is what the sleeping quarters used to look like. They had these small cots with the very thin, one blanket, no pillow. They had the kids in here. This is how the people slept, with their clothes drying around them. There's an idea of how the barracks looked. The people used to live here. Look at that. They used their cases, U.S. military blankets, and this is how they lived. And you can see that go, the game, and then those sandals they have in Japan, traditional clothing. There's some more traditional Japanese clothing. From Manzanar National Historical Monument, this is Dr. Ernesto Martinez. Thank you for watching, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you, and goodbye.